Hey everyone and welcome. Today, we're putting on our detective hats. We're going to dig into a really deep mystery. A time so long ago, there were no grand cities, no written histories. So our mission is to figure out what ancient stories and forgotten burials can actually tell us about a society lost to time.
I mean, it's a huge puzzle, right? When you don't have palaces, you don't have tax records, how on earth do you piece together what life was like, their beliefs, how they lived day to day? Well, this is where historians have to get creative, following two very different kinds of clues.
So on one side, you have the spoken word, these ancient hymns that were chanted and memorized and passed down for hundreds of years. And on the other, you've got the physical world, silent stones and objects left buried in the ground. Let's start our investigation with that first clue, the power of sound.
Okay, so our first piece of evidence is one of the oldest books in the entire world, a collection of hymns called the Rig Veda. But I'm using air quotes around book for a very good reason. It wasn't a book the way you and I think of one. And when I say ancient, I mean really ancient. We're talking about something composed about 3,500 years ago. To put that in perspective, that's centuries before ancient Rome was even a thought. It's an incredible window into a truly archaic world.
So what is it exactly? Well, the Rig Veda is this amazing collection of over 1,000 hymns. They're called sukta, which literally means well said. And these hymns were basically prayers to different gods. Three were super important. You had Agni, the god of fire, Indra, this powerful warrior god, and Soma, which was a special plant they used to make a sacred drink.
Now, here's the crucial part. For hundreds and hundreds of years, the Rig Veda only existed in memory. Priests were like living libraries, teaching their students to recite and memorize every single syllable perfectly. This was a living, breathing text that was heard and spoken, not just read off a page. It wasn't written down until many centuries later.
And these hymns, wow, they give us these incredible snapshots of their world. Just listen to this one. It's a conversation between a sage and two rivers. He compares them to two swift horses and two shining cows. So what does that tell us? It tells you everything about what was important to them. Horses and cows were so central to their lives that they were the ultimate metaphor for power and beauty.
So, by looking at what they prayed for, we see exactly what mattered. They wanted cattle, horses, and children. The battles they fought were for pasture land, for water, and, yep, for cattle. Their leaders, the Rajas, weren't fancy kings with palaces. They were brave warriors chosen by the people. And society was basically split into a few groups, the priests, the leaders, and then pretty much everyone else.
Okay, so while all those hymns were being composed and chanted in the Northwest, a completely different story was being told somewhere else. A story told not with words, but with stone. And that brings us to our second clue, these silent stone sentinels guarding the dead. Now this practice of building megaliths, which just means big stones, it started around 3,000 years ago. So you can see it's happening in that same big historical window we're looking at. And these weren't just random piles of rocks. They were carefully built to mark burial sites.
And building one of these things was a massive job. Just try to imagine the effort, finding the perfect stone, breaking these giant boulders, hauling them with no modern machines, digging huge pits, and then getting them into just the right spot. This took serious planning and a whole community working together.
Now, as archaeologists excavated these sites, they started noticing some common patterns. The burials are often marked by these big stone circles, and inside the dead were buried with this really distinctive black and red pottery. But here's a big clue. They were also buried with iron tools and weapons, and sometimes you'd even find horse skeletons and gold.
And this is where the story gets really interesting, because these burials can tell us a lot about social differences. At one site, Brahmagiri, archaeologists found one skeleton buried with 33 gold beads, stone beads, copper bangles, the whole shebang. And then nearby, they found other skeletons buried with just a couple of pots. I mean, what does that sound like to you? It's pretty clear that even in death, some people had a way higher status. Maybe these were the chiefs and their followers.
So, to really see how all these clues come together, let's zoom in on one specific archaeological site. It's in modern-day Maharashtra, it's called Inam Gaon, and people lived there between about 3,600 and 2,700 years ago.
At Inam Gaon, they found something pretty remarkable. In the courtyard of one of the absolute biggest houses in the whole settlement, a man was buried inside a giant four-legged clay jar. This was not a normal burial. Think about it. Being buried in a special container in a very public spot at the biggest house around, what does that suggest about who this person was?
And the site tells us so much more about just everyday life. The seeds they found show they were really skilled farmers, growing all sorts of crops. And the animal bones, a lot of them have cut marks on them, which shows us they were herding cattle and goats, but also hunting all kinds of wild animals and gathering local fruits. You can basically reconstruct their entire diet.
Okay, so let's step back for a second. We have two totally different sets of clues. We've got these ancient hymns passed down through generations, and we have the silent evidence of stones, bones, and pots pulled right out of the earth. Now, let's put them side by side and see what happens.
And this right here, this is where it all comes together to create a much fuller picture. The Rig Veda, that gives us a window into their minds, right? Their beliefs, their gods, their prayers, their ideas about society. The burials, on the other hand, they show us the physical world, what they ate, the tools they used, like iron, their social rankings, their rituals for the dead. Neither one tells the whole story on its own, but together they give us this amazingly rich understanding of these ancient people.
And that's really what's so cool about all this. It shows us that history isn't just a list of facts in a book, it's an active investigation. By combining different kinds of evidence, we can start to hear the echoes of ancient voices and understand people who left nothing else behind. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible stories are still out there, just buried, waiting for us to find them? Thanks for joining this investigation today.